So today we're going to be talking all about those habits that you've had ingrained in you over a period of time, maybe months, maybe years. And now when it comes to trying to lose weight, whether it's also trying to build muscle, get in shape, get fitter, get leaner, get healthier, whatever you want to call it, these bad habits are coming to really kind of scupper your progress. They are the things, the obstacles, the barriers that keep tripping you up and make you fall flat on your face when it comes to trying to achieve your goal. But right now, I'm going to guide you through my process for breaking even the most ingrained bad habits that you think you might have. And maybe you think you're at the point where I can't actually get through this. I can't actually get past this. This is going to be a stumbling block forever and a day. So if you're that person, that's your thought process, then yes, this podcast, video, live training, wherever it is you're consuming this is going to be the answer for you. Now, we're going to start off by defining what a bad habit actually is, just so that we're on the same page, because there's some activity that you might be doing and some things that you might be doing on a daily basis that you think, wow, this is a fucking bad habit and I shouldn't be doing this, when actually it's not a bad habit. So let's just get on the same page. Now, to me, this is not a dictionary definition. To be fair, I couldn't be asked to go on the Google and search for what the dictionary definition of a bad habit was. I'm just coming at you with my opinion of what a bad habit is. So for me, a bad habit in the context of fitness, specifically really nutrition, is this. So a bad habit is really kind of a repetitive, almost automatic behavior taking you away from your desired goal. So that's kind of, to me, what a bad habit is. So it's that behavior that is consistently leading you to eat or drink something that exceeds your calorie target, especially when you're in a calorie deficit. So you're trying to hit this calorie target on a daily basis consistently, but you've got this habit that you keep repeating. It's the same thing day after day after day, week after week, and that's taking you away from that calorie target. Is making you go into a calorie surplus. You're therefore not losing weight, you're not losing body fat, and you're not achieving your goal. The other characteristic, as I kind of mentioned there, was it's repetitive and seemingly uncontrollable. Obviously, there is a degree of control you can have if you've got the right techniques, but you might be feeling, well, actually, I just can't control this. I just can't do anything about it. Nothing I seem to try actually, solves the problem. Stopping short of locking your chocolate away in a safe and throwing away the key, you feel like there's no other solution. And it's repetitive. It's not like you're doing this once every 6 months. This is something that you're repeating constantly and constantly and constantly. And it's now that thing, that really annoying thing in your brain, that voice in your head that is you can't get rid of, that you now have this repetitive thing going on. Now, a lot of people say, well, I've got this bad habit of eating chocolate. Now, this is an interesting one because to me, eating chocolate in and of itself is not a bad habit. Chocolate is not a bad food, and you can apply this to pretty much anything. So let's take it in the context of someone who's eating 2,000 calories a day. So that's their calorie deficit number. They're trying to hit 2,000 calories. That will put them in a deficit. They'll lose weight, lose body fat. All will be brilliant. So if we apply the old Pareto, who was a never chap mathematician dude, 80-20 rule. 80% you're going to try and go for the healthy stuff, or healthy, quote unquote, shall I use? So the highly nutritious stuff. 20% of the time, you're going to go for what you might consider the treats, the chocolate, the donuts, all that sort of stuff. 20%. Now, in the context of 2,000 calories, 400 calories is 20%. So you've got 400 calories that in that sort of 80-20 rule, 400 calories, you could have whatever the fuck you wanted. Whether you wanted a donut, now Krispy Kreme standard glaze is 200 calories. A Kit Kat, 209 calories. So that's only half of the requirement, or not requirement, should I say, or the allowance that you're going to have under that 80-20 rule. So if you said, well, I have a chocolate bar every day, and that's my bad habit. If that is in the context of you're hitting 2,000 calories every day, and most of your diet is coming from whole foods, so you're looking at, predominantly vegetables, you've got fruit in there, your meat sources, your fish, you've got dairy in there, all of those sorts of quote unquote nutritious, healthy foods are the majority of your diet. So they're making up the 1,600 calories. If you've got 400 calories to play with and you choose to have a chocolate bar every day, who the fuck cares? That's where I would come from with that. So that, if that's your thinking, that's your bad habit, that's not actually a bad habit. That's actually someone who is exercising a degree of control over their calories, and they are purposefully including foods that they enjoy, that if they restricted, they might binge on at a later date and then really overeat at certain periods. So actually, it can be quite a good tactic to make sure that you stay on track. So there's one thing to consider. However, if your chocolate addiction, I'm not going to call that an addiction really, but if your craving for chocolate means that you're having 1,200 calories per day from chocolate and only 800 calories from nutritious food, then that probably is a bad habit. Because, yes, you could kind of still lose weight if you still got 2,000 calories, but is it going to be optimal for health? Are you going to really kind of be optimizing everything that you possibly could? I very much doubt it. So again, look at it in context. One food on its own, in isolation, doesn't necessarily make it bad. And that doesn't necessarily make it a bad habit either. So let me flip over my notes and let's go on to the next stage, which is what causes us to form these habitual behaviors. So why have you got this quote unquote bad habit that you're trying to shape that's taking you off track when it comes to weight and fat loss, or whether it's building muscle and things like that? Well, there's a number of different things that could be going on. So you could have a learned behavior. So it might be something that your parents did when you were a kid. Maybe they had a certain way of eating, or maybe they just didn't really care about calories or didn't understand about calories, and they had a way of eating, a habit. I know people who have regularly have in their families 3, 4, 5 takeaways per week, and that becomes, because if you're growing up in that environment, that could become an ingrained behavior that you're consistently just having those takeaways on that regular of a basis. So you could have this learned passing, could come from parents, could come from just anywhere that you've kind of learned or picked this up over time. You could have a trigger response when you're seeking comfort. So a lot of people resort to food, specifically certain types of food, when they may be feeling down. They may have had something happen to them, whether it's at work or a family situation that makes them feel a little bit emotional, a little bit down, and kind of those fluctuations in mood cause some people to reach for what they would consider to be, I guess, more calorie dense, more treat foods, dare I say it, even the dreaded word that no one should use, cheat food. And they seek comfort in food and certain types of food. And generally that food they seek comfort in is highly calorific. And if had in enough quantities, will take you into a calorie surplus and kind of scupper your weight loss and fat loss goals. Another one is kind of related to that would be high stress. So whether that's high stress in terms of like financial stress, family stress, work stress, again, the trigger response could be to go towards food, and that be the fallback plan. Could even be, several glasses of wine and tub of ice cream, whatever it is that high stress. Some people just go trigger, bang, I'm going to go eat something. That's going to make me feel better in that moment. Generally speaking, it probably does make you feel better in that single moment, but after that, maybe not so much. You've then got a lack of sleep. So sleep doesn't necessarily make you fat, lack of sleep doesn't necessarily make you fat, but it does do something inside you that says, well, actually it increases, or it's likely to increase your hunger levels. So if your hunger levels increase because you're consistently getting a lack of sleep, then again, you get into this cycle of, if you don't break the cycle of your lack of sleep, then you're going to roll into each and every day feeling more hungry. And then you're going to develop this pattern of reaching for maybe some higher calorific foods especially when you get later into the day. So if you've got a lack of sleep, you might find you're okay first thing in the morning because, of the energy that you do have, you probably got most of it first thing in the morning. When you're at work and you make it through to about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, then you start to flag. Then you're kind of like wavering on the edge, you're teetering on the edge, you're on the ledge in terms of your sticking to your diet. And then you decide to make the leap. You go to the vending machine, you drown yourself in Mars bars and Snickers and things like that. And therefore, you drown in chocolate despair. So you're less likely to have that willpower if you have a lack of sleep. And again, that can cause you to have a series of habitual behaviors if that lack of sleep continues. The other one is that food simply tastes fucking good. Fucking good. People like food. I like food. And people like pizza, donuts, chocolate. Basically, if it's got fat, sugar, sometimes a bit of protein, then yeah, it's going to be fucking wicked. So that's why people just enjoy those foods. And it's a real thing because, as I've spoken about on previous podcasts, is that when it comes to craving, your brain is kind of triggered to give you more of a kind of enjoyment response from getting carbs, fat, protein, and salt. It triggers a dopamine response in the brain, not to the levels of addiction like you might hear people talk about, but it certainly gets your brain really craving those types of foods. So if you're always having them, you're always having these feelings of, wow, this is amazing. Let's have more. Let's have more. Let's have more. And so you can get into that situation of this just tastes fucking good. And if you have it regularly enough, then you're always kind of thinking about that food. And if you're anything like me, either you spend your days in the gym eating or thinking about eating. They are the three modes of my brain. And yes, I'm always thinking about food. So if it tastes fucking good, then you're likely to eat it. So yeah, and if you haven't got sort of control over that, then yes, that can lead to some habitual behaviors where you constantly reach for those foods that taste fucking good. Now, the last one is you can have a combination of all of the above. You could be having a lack of sleep, high stress, you've got a learned behavior, you like food that tastes fucking good, and therefore you're in the trenches with this one now. You are fighting a war against all of these different sorts of things that are causing you to have this consistent bad habit that you now need to try and break. And that's what we're going to do right now. So how do you change your bad habits and your ingrained behaviors? So the first thing is to look at the things in your life that could cause you to have a bad habit that are within your control. So what is it in your life that could be causing you to have a bad habit, but you have absolute control over it, or a certain degree of control? Let's say that. So for example, you might be able to reduce your stress. So is there something related to your work that you could switch off a little bit earlier in terms of your work life, in terms of your personal life, your finances? Is there anything you can do there? Can you work with your family to kind of de-stress a little bit more and kind of share the burden of some of the things that are going on? There's lots of different things that you might be able to do to reduce your stress levels. That's going to have an impact. Obviously, there's certain levels of stresses that you probably can't have a total degree of control over. Things just happen, life happens, shit hits the fan, you have to deal with it, causes you stress. Okay, you can't necessarily account for that, but there are a certain number of things that you can do. The other thing then is to maximize sleep. Again, difficult depending on certain individual circumstances. Certainly if you've got a newborn child or something like that, lack of sleep just goes with the territory. You're not really going to be able to do much about that. But if you're the type of person who is watching Netflix on your iPad in bed till midnight until you fall asleep, and then you're having a shitty night's sleep and getting up at 5 a.m., that's within your control to change that. Until you take those things seriously, then you are going to have these knock-on impacts of maybe affecting your diet, affecting your nutrition, and other such things around your ability to try and lose weight. So if you're complaining that, oh, I'm not losing weight and I'm not making any progress, but you're not looking after this small stuff that's in your control, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. And often I would say if you have it within your control to change this and you don't, then A, you've only got yourself to blame when it comes to not achieving your goal, and B, you kind of deserve it, because the goal is there. You have the ability to change certain things to make that process easier, but you are purposefully making it hard on yourself. So there's a bit of tough love there for you. And also when it comes to sleep, so turn off those laptops, turn off those smartphones. If you have to, put your phone in a different room, on charge, in a different room, so you can't pick it up in the middle of the night and check it and all that sort of shit. And the bedroom becomes a place to sleep or to get it on. One of the two. Never anything else. Now, then you can also make sure that the room is dark. You can make sure the room is quite cool, and you just create the environment where you're going to get a good night's sleep. That is going to have a knock-on effect. You also might want to look at your diet. So this is like number 3 on our list. You might want to look at your diet and reduce those highly palatable foods. So the things that I mentioned before about pizza, donut, ice cream, chocolate, all this thing has got this fat, sugar, sometimes a bit of protein and salt combination is what your brain goes fucking batshit crazy over. That's what it wants. Now, I'm not saying you can't have those things. Absolutely, you 100% can have those things. But if you're struggling with cravings and you're struggling with hunger and you're struggling with these bad habits, maybe, just maybe, it's better to have less of that, sometimes none of it, if it is going to help you stick to your goal, especially in those early stages. Once you maybe get through the early part of your diet and you're making progress, the ball's rolling, you're really up to speed with calories, you've got everything in check, everything's like running like a steam train, then yeah, cool. Bring in some other different foods that you can have that you can now control because you've got the processes, you understand, and then it can make it a little bit more varied. Certainly do that. But I would recommend that if you're having these problems, try and reduce those highly palatable foods. So don't have pizza every fucking day. Don't have a donut every fucking day. Just have it sporadically and controlled. That would be the thing I would go for. Next up, you would say number 4 is go for satiating foods. Now, satiating is a posh word for making you feel full, making you stop feeling hungry. Now, there's lots of different foods. You can Google the satiety index, and that will give you a bunch of foods that will rank them on how filling they are. You'll see that things like white potato is hugely filling. Now, a lot of people say, well, carbs, all this sort of blood sugar and all that sort of stuff. So carbs are bad for helping you feel full. It's actually bollocks because white potato is one of the most filling foods you can have. So absolutely, you could incorporate that in your diet. If you like potato and you want to feel full, cool, go for it. Other things that would be good swaps would be things like green vegetables or most like vegetables of that nature, like your, let's say peppers, cucumber, cauliflower, broccoli, beans, all these different sorts of things that are low calorie, so you can have them in high volume. So that's going to take up a lot of real estate in your stomach, and you can therefore feel fuller on less calories. And that's going to be a bonus for you sticking to those things. So pick those satiating foods. Also, make sure you're exercising. Exercise is going to help again with cravings. That's a proven thing. I covered this in another podcast. Just make sure you're not overtraining. And then the last one I would say is look at your food environment. Now, your food environment is how you surround yourself with different types of food, especially kind of the more calorie dense stuff. So, for example, if you like cookies, then if you have cookies in a jar on the side of the kitchen table, you are more likely to put your hand in that cookie jar every time you walk past it because it's there, it's visible. You know what they taste like, they taste good, and it's just in your line of sight. You're just more likely to go and grab one. If you then just take that one step further and say, okay, well, I'm not going to put them out on display. I'm going to put them in a box, in a drawer, in the cupboards or something like that. They're not in your line of sight. You know they're there. You're not stupid, but they're not in your line of sight. They're not being constantly reminded. You've instantly made that less likely for you to go and dip your hand in that cookie jar or cookie tub. Okay, there is a chance, there is a possibility you still will, but it's reduced. You could then go one step further than that and say, well, I'm not going to have these things in the house at all. I'm not going to deprive myself. I'm not going to deprive myself from having it if I want it. But if I want it, I'm going to have to go specifically and go and buy it on the day that I want it. And that can be a good way to to kind of really control things. So I've spoken before about my sort of weakness is ice cream. So if ice cream is in the house, I will eat it. Simple as that. The whole tub will go. So I know that my ability to control that food is very limited. But I know that, and I'm accepting of that. If I want ice cream, I'll go fucking have it. No issues, no qualms about that. But it means I have to put my coat on, put my shoes on, walk into town, go buy it, bring it back, and eat it, which is a bit of a mission if I want to do that every day. So it only happens on an occasional basis and under control. So managing that food environment is a key thing, so that when you have these moments where a bad habit may be triggered, that trigger food isn't there for you to actually go and eat. And that can be a good way to control things. The other thing is maybe a look at your goals. So what is your goal and why is it you want to achieve it? Everyone talks about, find your why. Why is it that you want to achieve that? And, review that goal. So is it because you want to lose weight because you don't feel confident? You don't feel like you're comfortable in social situations? You don't like how you look in the mirror? Maybe it's a more positive thing that you want to be a good role model for your kids. You want to be healthier so that you can run around with them in the park and sort of all those different sorts of things. So what is that reason why you want to achieve this particular goal? And keep reminding yourself of that. And one tactic I would use is think about, does this action, this activity, get me closer or further away from that goal? And then you have to make a conscious decision. And then, because when you're going through this process of making conscious decisions, you're less likely to choose the more evil option, let's call it that. Because if you say to yourself, okay, what I want to do is I want to lose weight. So let's put you in a scenario. You are 3 p.m. at work, you're feeling hungry. This is the time when you usually dip into sort of bad habit territory. And then before you actually go and take that action, take that activity, you take a moment to reflect and you say, right, my goal is to lose weight, lose body fat, because at the moment, I don't like how I look myself in the mirror. I want to be a leaner, healthier version of myself. I want to feel confident. I want to be that person that walks down the beach strutting their stuff with absolute confidence because I'm comfortable with who I am and how I look. That's what I want to be. You don't say that out loud, maybe. That'd be a bit weird in the office, but you might just say that in your head. Now you say to yourself, you ask yourself the question, does having this chocolate bar now help me get towards the person I want to be, or does it take me further away? And now you have to make an absolute conscious decision. You have to say, I want to make the decision that takes me further away from the person I want to be. You're making that decision. Whereas if you just say, well, it's 3 p.m., I'm going for a chocolate bar, I just feel like it. You're not stopped, thought, reflected, and made a conscious decision. If you still want to go for the chocolate bar at 3 p.m., that's cool. You've consciously accepted that decision and you've made that thought process and you've gone through it and you've made that decision. That's cool. You're an adult. Cool, go for it. But having that thought process really, really can help. One of the other things that you can do around that is something called like reduction of decision fatigue. Now, decision fatigue is where you're constantly having to make a bunch of fucking decisions. And specifically in this context about food, for example, I'm all for flexible dieting, 100%. Having what you want, when you want it, so that you can make it fit into your calories, so you don't ever feel deprived, you don't ever feel restricted, all of that sort of good stuff. Absolutely 100% a fan of this process. However, trying to keep, people sometimes think that means that you kind of have to have something different every fucking day. Every day you've got to do something different and you've got to change up what you eat and all this sort of stuff, which is great. But I find that that's not real world living. Unless you're the fucking Rock who's got a personal chef that just says, just eat this, it's perfectly calorie calculated, go for it, then your desire to keep having different foods constantly is just not there, because it just requires so much effort. You've constantly got to think about everything you eat. is it going to hit your calorie target? Oh, what's this? Oh, I'm going to have this. You're making so many decisions about food that you get tired of that process and you just think, fuck it. Now, that's the situation where the bad habit comes in. So maybe you get to that point where you're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're all right. And then you think, oh, this is dragging. And then Thursday, that's your bad habit day because you have made so many decisions, your decision fatigues, and you just think, fuck it. And then you just go have 35 donuts, whatever. So trying to reduce decision fatigue. How many meals do you actually enjoy on a daily basis? So do you have pretty much the same breakfast? You have the same pre-workout, post-workout, evening supper, dish, whatever it is. How many of those things do you just eat regularly because you enjoy them and you're happy to eat them all the time? Don't feel bad that you want to have the same thing consistently. If you like it, you love it, and it helps you achieve your goal, then don't care about what anyone else says. Oh, you're having porridge every fucking day, man. That's just so fucking boring. Yeah, but I like it, and I'm getting jacked. So sweet. Now, so you can do that. So reduce decision fatigue, reduce the amount of nutritional decisions you have to make, especially if you're in this problem. Now, if you don't have this problem of bad habits, then I'm not really talking to you specifically. If you don't have any bad habits or you don't have any trouble hitting your calories, do whatever the fuck you want, really. But if you are that person that's struggling, then some of these strategies are really, really going to help you. The other thing to do is look at what your triggers are. So triggers can be something to do with time of day of the week. So I kind of mentioned a couple of those, 3 p.m. where, things are dragging at work, or it's a time of the week where you're just kind of having issues with staying on track. It's all getting a little bit mundane and boring. It might be social situations. You might go out every Friday or Saturday and that trips you up. Then it might be you consistently get to a point in the week where you've got no fucking food in the house because you always go shopping on a Saturday, but come sort of Thursday, you haven't really got anything left. So Friday comes a little bit of a, fuck it type of day. Maybe you can't be asked to fucking meal prep. So that's kind of causing you a bit of an issue. Maybe there's peer pressure, like I said, about someone saying, oh, you fucking eat the same thing every day. You're a bit of a boring loser, all that sort of thing. You can tell this is personal experience, can't you? And then you get that trigger food and then it's like, can't stop. You get that one food that you just have and you just nail the whole lot. Maybe it's Oreo cookies, maybe it's a box of Pringles or whatever. That trigger food that that if you just have one, you've had them all and it's gone and you can't do anything about it. At that point, you have two options. Either you change the trigger and sort that out, or you change the habit from that trigger. So for example, let's look at the habit side of things. So if you know that at 3 p.m., you're always going to have this trigger is going to happen. Or on a Thursday, you know that all the time this trigger is going to happen. If you know that, what you can do is say, I'm not going to fight the fact that I'm going to be hungry at 3 p.m. I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to accept it, but I'm going to change what I do at 3 p.m. when I have that feeling, that hunger feeling. So things like you could go for a walk. You could, if you're at work, you could go and talk to a colleague, or you can, make some phone calls, get up out of your seat and go for a walk and say, right, okay, 3 p.m. I'm just going to make some phone calls that I need to make and things like that. Do something else. Get yourself distracted and change what happens at that particular time. You can also have, let's say a particular food that you want to change up for. So if you always go for a chocolate bar, maybe you have pre-prepared with you a few squares of chocolate that if you eat these, you'll still be on plan. Maybe you completely change it and you have a piece of fruit. Again, you all calorie counted and help you keep on track. You could do that, absolutely. You can also change your meal patterns. So for example, if you're always having this issue at 3 p.m., then you can say, well, actually, if I have a little bit of a lighter lunch and save some of those calories for 3 p.m., and if I have a nice, decent-sized meal at 3 p.m., not just like a little snack, but a decent-sized meal, then actually that might work for me. So I might have a small breakfast, a slightly smaller lunch than I'm used to, and then you have this kind of meal at 3 p.m. that's quite sizable, and that's kind of quite satisfying. And again, you've planned for it and you've accounted for it within your calories. It keeps you on track. It's now not a bad habit. And you could incorporate some of those foods that you're considering to be a treat or something like that into that kind of process as well. And then you kind of just then looking at the harder part, which is changing the trigger. Now, the trigger itself, like whether it's 3 p.m., whether it's Thursday, that's the more difficult thing to change, because that's going to be like a lifestyle change. That's going to be you forcing yourself to do something different. Now, personally, like that would be like, I go down the habit route first. For me, if I would change what happens once the trigger hits, that would be my personal preference, because trying to switch up your lifestyle and change that sort of thing, it's a bit more of an overhaul, but you could do it. You just got to think about the personal situation, what's going to work for you and what works best. But have a think about those different sorts of things, what would work better for you and what's actually going to get you to a position where you no longer got this bad habit. But the thing to remember is whatever it is you try, you're always going to have this period of trial and error. You're never going to get it perfect from day one. You're never going to get to the point where you change a habit overnight. It's going to be a bit of a trial and error process. You're going to try something, it doesn't work. Okay, let's try something else. Okay, that doesn't work, or it partially works. So you build on it, you change it, you move it, and all these different sorts of things. You're learning about yourself, you're learning about your body, you're learning about your triggers, your habits, and your behaviors. So make sure that you're not looking this as, as soon as I try one thing and it doesn't work, then I give up. That's not really the way to look at it. It's more looking at it over a longer term thing and making sure that you're just trying to make the right progressive decisions to try make more positive habit changes in your life. Cool. So that was a whistle stop, quite lengthy actually. It's a quite lengthy whistle stop. Is there a lengthy whistle stop? Is that a thing? I don't know. Maybe it is now. Walk through how to break a bad habit. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, you can come and drop me a message on Instagram. My username is @iron_paradise_fitness. That's where I hang out. You can drop me a message. You can ask me a bunch of questions about the podcast. You can make suggestions for podcasts in the future, questions that you want answered, all of that sort of stuff. And if you like the podcast and maybe you think that I could help you achieve your fitness goals in the fastest possible time, which I definitely fucking could, let's be honest, then click the link in the notes. That'll take you to my online coaching page. You can have a look about the services that I offer through Iron Paradise Fitness, and you can come and book in and just to have a chat with me. No hard sell, no nothing like that. We can have a chat about where you are now, where you want to get to, and how I can help you bridge the gap between A and B. So other than that, all I want to say is thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for watching. Keep living the lean life, and I'll see you for the next one.